Welcome back. It's that time for the state of the nation. So many things are happening in the country, starting with the MPs deciding to strike at the parliament buildings, saying no CDF, no parliament. That aside, the president is still outside of the country, attending to international duties. First of all, starting with that COP28 summit that was going on in Dubai, but it is still going on. Himself, he has left. He's now in India for a 2-day official state visit. Kenya has bagged about 38 billion shillings from India in that visit. So many things happened, from complaints of him going with a very big delegation outside. But should we really be worried about the cost, or should we look at the benefits of these international duties and obligations that the president is doing? And where does this place our foreign missions and our ambassadors? What job then do they have if the president is moving out of the country to do this all by himself? We look at that together with my panelists who are already in studio. I'm having with me MWADIME Mwangi, who is the National Executive Director, Mount Kenya Colleges and University Students Association, and KWEYU Isaac, who is appearing on the set of the State of the Nation for the first time. He is a political commentator. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you so much for having us.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Dennis. It's good to see you again.
Thank you so much for being here. Yeah. It's great actually to have you here. Let me start with just general comments very fast on the arrest of the controller of budget. The government says, the DPP actually says, that there are charges she has to answer to, not just herself, but I think about 10 other people. But the opposition says there is malice. The timing is wrong. This is actually political witch hunt and arrest. Where do you stand on this one? Should I start with you, Isaac?
I think it's a political witch hunt. If you look at the case, I think her case was mentioned in the year 2019, even before she was sworn into office. Mm-hmm. She started serving on 4th December 2019. Mm-hmm. And as per Article 251 of the Constitution of Kenya, mm-hmm. she's supposed to retire in 2027 December. Yeah. And again, this Constitution is very clear that her office enjoys the protection that she has to serve for 8 years. So if you look at the recent events before her arrest, which will give us the answer whether it is a political witch hunt or it is justified. Mm-hmm. Number one, 4 weeks ago, she was giving a report to NADCO about the budget and everything. Mm-hmm. And she mentioned something very vital, that when she was checking the budget for the consolidated fund services, she noticed that her salary for 1 year was tripled, and the same thing was happening for all state officers. Mm-hmm. Previously, again, she had mentioned something about the government expenditure and highlighted that very soon mm-hmm. the government may not be able to facilitate its dues because money is getting in and getting out into people's hands. And I think somebody somewhere is feeling that this lady should not do the God's work.
Okay, and even still on that one, still the presentation you are referring to, the presentation she made to the National Dialogue Committee at Bomas.
Yes.
She also said about the Hustler Fund, no, not really the Hustler Fund, the Housing Fund, or the Housing Levy. And she said that the reason why Kenyans don't even trust that they'll get these houses is because when somebody tells you something over and over again and it doesn't happen, that trust goes away, which somehow looked like she was hitting at the government, maybe unconsciously or subconsciously. Maybe she did see it that way when she said it. But Nick, does this mean that, for example, maybe Margaret is too honest to a fault?
I was just watching the court case of Margaret Nyakango, and allegedly she's been accused of defrauding one Claudetia Mueni of 29 million between the year 1st November 2019 and 1st May 2020. I want to agree here with Isaac. To me, that is simply a political witch hunt, because the timing actually is odd, number one. Number two, it is very specific because she is reporting to Kenyans that we are actually on a bloated budget. We don't have the money. Money comes in. Today we saw that the president has gone to get almost 38 billion in India, right? But we don't see the money. Taxpayers' money is out, in and out of different offices and institutions, unaccounted for. That's what Margaret Nyakango is simply saying, that there are a lot of public servants in this government that are fully corrupt. And the pinch is going to the taxpayers, and that is why she's fighting that battle.
Okay, looking at the charges, according to the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, the Controller of Budget is being alleged to have committed charges including defrauding Claudia Mweni Mutungi of 29 million shillings on diverse dates between 1st November 2019 and 1st May 2020 by pretending to operate a genuine investment, namely FEB Sacco Limited. The second charge is operating FEB Sacco Limited without a valid license from Sacco Regulatory Authority, and the third charge is forging Claudia Mweni Mutungi's signature on December 2nd, 2019. When you look at this, this is the same Margaret who presented before the National Assembly evidence of WhatsApp conversations between her and former Treasury CS, that is Ukuri Atani, saying that there were some withdrawals just before former President Uhuru Kenyatta left office. She's the one that Raila Odinga is defending today. Actually, politics creates a coalition of strange bedfellows, if you may allow me. Is Raila Odinga playing politics at this time by defending Margaret?
We may say he's playing politics, but at the end of the day, he's very clear in his message that this lady has been arrested because there are individuals in the government who are corrupt, and probably they feel like this lady may expose them. It is politics at the end of the day, but he is just defending her from the fact that there is a message somewhere on the wall that some people are already feeling the pinch, and they are very afraid that this lady might fix them. So Raila must get in, and I think he's getting in the right time to make sure that this lady is protected. No matter what, we want these people to be brought to book.
Who is being fixed and for what reasons?
There must be somebody at the Treasury who feels like the Lord's work must not be done. I have to repeat that.
Well, I don't know what the Lord's work. I don't know what the Lord's work means.
In my view,
yeah.
I see it as Raila Odinga protecting the institution, the Office of the Control of Budget, because it plays a key role to this government or to this country. And the person that is holding this office is one Margaret Nyakango, number one. Number two, because your question is very specific, Raila has been known for his fight against corruption and against corrupt public servants. And if Margaret Nyakango has been deemed to be corrupt, then the court will serve her justice. Thirdly, because you've talked about the issue of Margaret Nyakango presentation on her text messages with former CS Ruto'S Atan, if you keenly observed that presentation, her body language was extremely off. She looked as if she's under strictly or under coercion to report or divulge certain information about conversation. Because we have seen, again, the office of the DPP previously being very biased, because until date, if she was not arrested or arraigned to court, then that deemed to be hearsay of, for lack of a better word, of the government of the day.
Okay. Thanks so much, gentlemen. Let's end it at that point. That case will again be mentioned on 13th December 2013. But let's move to the role of the president now at the global stage. The president, since taking office, in fact, immediately after his swearing in, the first thing president did was to attend the burial of Queen Elizabeth The second, from that point, we've had President Ruto going out every other month, almost every other weekend. But let's face it, gentlemen, is President Ruto finally the president who is going to place Kenya on the global map? Do you see him delivering us and giving us a name out there?
First of all, we must applaud him because he has been mentioned globally as one of the key leaders from Africa who are really pushing for climate change initiatives and actions. And in Africa, I think is the third in the globally is the listed among 100 champions globally, but third in Africa. You get it? So we must applaud him for that. And there are a number of initiatives that he's pushing alongside that. But what is the cost of all this? For instance, for the COP28, the president carried 765 people to that delegation. And you understand, for a president to travel for even for a day, it will cost the country, let's say, like 1 million or 2 million shillings. So what is the cost of going to that meeting? We see is actually coming in with a lot of goodies. The other day was to be given 630-something billion shillings by the UAE. And he's also bagging 1 billion shillings from UK, all for renewable energy, environment issues, yes. But will this money really work? We can only give him a benefit of doubt and wait, because this is a new initiative. We've not seen previous presidents doing it. So let us give him a benefit of doubt and see what unfolds. Because again, he's negotiating for a number of things like reduced grace periods for loans, reduced interest rates for negotiation for a number of things. So we can give him time. We see if those policies that he's trying to implement and using the international community at large will work out. That is all I can say. Okay.
President William Ruto is coming out as the voice of Africa. He seems to be speaking for Africa. In fact, at the COP28 summit, he went there to present the declaration, the Nairobi Declaration, the agreements that Africans really came up with when they met here in Nairobi in September. That is the Africa Climate Summit. And he has done this several times. Are we seeing Ruto the Pan-Africanist, even though Julius Malema doesn't seem to agree?
Dennis, I will start first with the statistics that are there. In the financial year of 1st July 2022 to 30th of June 2023, the Office of the President has attained a total of 51 trips and a staggering cost of exceeding an amount of 1.3 billion. Now, to make the issue more closer, the Office of the Deputy President has made 5 trips. The Office of the President himself, Ruto, has made 46 trips. Now, the taxpayers' money is staggering, way above 1.3 billion. And the cost is increasing by the day. Now, the sad situation is we are still here as a country having a bloated economy, having difficult times. We're still borrowing money from different countries, and our financial times are hard. We can praise him all we want about him being a Pan-Africanist traveler, but a Pan-African, by my own understanding, brings results to his own country, right? To his own people. We are saying as a country, as a nation, that him as an individual or the office of the president needs to reduce and cut down these costs, because it is a huge burden to the people, right? It is a huge cry to the common mwananchi, and we cannot sustain all these trips that he's making.
Okay, at that point we are due for our very first break here. Nick is saying the costs are just too high, but then looking at the benefits, 680 billion shillings bagged by Kenya from the COP28 summit. Isn't this a huge thing? We look at that. We continue with this discussion after this short break. Don't go too far. You are still watching State of the Nation. Now let's get straight into the president's visit to India, the first official state visit the president is making to the second most populous country in the world. What does these numbers mean for Kenya in terms of business investments in various sectors, including agriculture, ICT? You really want to partner with India in areas like health. But the president here, first of all, one of the fruits is the communication from State House indicates that Kenya has managed to get 38 billion shillings to be spent in agriculture or agricultural mechanization and for vaccines, among other interventions. How do you interpret this?
Well, it's comical to me because India is a third world country, as we are. And the poverty level of India is almost equivalent to ours. But the disturbing question, or something that I cannot get out of my head is, if India is loaning us 38 billion, then how bad are we as a country? We are both at the third level, the third margin, right? Almost at the same poverty level. But here comes India, loaning us 38 billion, then it is serious that we as a country, we're really in a bad shape. Yes.
Isaac?
I think we are getting to a point where I'm beginning to believe that if you take the Kenyan politicians, let's say, to USA, in the next 6 months' time, the USA will be coming to Kenya to borrow for loans. Because where we are headed now, it's like we are going to get money from Congo to build roads in Kenya. We are really in a very, very bad state. And I think the president should start listening to the people. Even if he cannot listen to his advisors, they should even start then listening to the people, even the people who voted for the opposition then. If he can't listen to the opposition, he can't listen to the advisors, he can't listen to anybody, I don't know what will happen. But we are really headed to a very wrong direction. It is very funny. It's no longer interesting. Yes.
But when you say that, who is lending us notwithstanding? Do you agree that the government needs to raise revenue if we are going to meet the obligations and to get to finance the budget that the government came up with? Do you think that we really need to be considering who is loaning us? Yes, India could be third world like ourselves, but at this point, in terms of making sure that Kenyans get the services and everything that was promised in that budget, do you think we should be looking at, okay, who is lending us is third world?
Leave alone even the question of who is lending us. Look at the kind of debt the President Kibaki left us with. It was at 1.4 something trillion. Yeah. President Uhuru Kenyatta brought it to 8 point something trillion in 10 years. Then now we are here in 12 months. We're at almost at 11 trillion from 8. In 1 year, we've already borrowed 3 trillion. Assuming we'll have to go through our culture of having to elect president for 2 terms, if it is 3 trillion for 1 year, we'll get ourselves in 50 trillion. So the issue of borrowing is not even a problem. I'm saying we're getting to a point where we'll now start even borrowing from anybody who comes to this country. We tell them we want a loan. But you see, the problem again is the money is being borrowed, but being stolen by just a few individuals. So today I was telling somebody that when you find ourselves now borrowing from countries that are even suffering than us, there are people who are just interested in getting that money and disappearing with it because nobody at the end of the day will even follow it up. We know of IMF, that one somebody can follow it up. But if you go and borrow from Uganda, Tanzania, India, you go in Sierra Leone, nobody will even bother how much you borrowed. It looks like an arrangement between the president and just a few individuals in that country. It doesn't look like a public debt. So that is what the president is literally doing. He's now borrowing on his behalf, not even the country. Yeah, that is the problem.
Okay, because I believe that...
Because nobody monitors that debt.
Yes.
If you talk about borrowing, it has to be a debt that somebody will monitor. Don't just go anywhere and borrow. Yes.
Okay, you talked about IMF and other Bretton Woods institutions.
Yep.
Let's talk about the World Bank and all that. The president, one of the things he talked about when in India, he says he's agreeing with the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi on changing the global finance system. And this is something that he has talked about several times before. Just trying to reform to ensure that the global south gets their fair share of the resources that is needed in development. Of course, India has joined hands with China, Russia, South Africa, and Brazil to form the BRICS to try to change the whole finance system. As much as we say that IMF and World Bank are the best places to go for.
They are not the best. They are not the best.
They are not the best.
Don't misquote me. They are not the best. I'm
Okay.
just talking about accountability.
Okay.
Yes.
Because we're having 11 parastatals up for sale, and it could possibly be part of the agreements that Kenya signed for loans from IMF and the World Bank. Part of the recommendations was reduce the loopholes through which Kenya is losing so much money.
One thing President Ruto was doing today in India,
Yes.
he was talking against people or institutions like IMF, because IMF is mostly aligned with the dollar shilling. And the issue about now the BRICS, where we have China, Russia, the likes of India coming together to fight the dollar. So the president was just doing a political day in India. It was just a political tour for him, right? Let me please the prime minister, get whatever I want, I go back to my country, right? To him, it's just politics. But here, back to our country, he has a signed covenant or deal or agreement with IMF that Kenyans should be taxed. When he came to this government, when he took over power, he said he will not borrow, right? It is even worse. He's borrowing and he's taxing Kenyans more. We are not seeing results. We are seeing the pinch, right? We're talking about institutions being auctioned or being sold. One of them is Kenya Pipeline. Now I want you to imagine if petrol is at 217. Now imagine Kenya Pipeline goes to an individual. How far will it go? Dennis, it is crazy. To him, he's treating this country as if it's a joke.
Okay.
Kenyans are suffering.
Okay.
Right? The cost of living is high. The shilling has dropped down. He needs to be serious.
Okay, I want us to take closing shots because time is not really on our side. I want us to take your final remarks. On a scale of 1 to 10, do you think that President Ruto is putting Kenya on the global map? Is this what these international travels expected to achieve, and have they achieved that?
First of all, we must acknowledge he has really put us in the global space, especially on matters climate change. He has really tried. But now, as I highlighted earlier, the problem comes with the cost that we get from that. Number one, I had actually forgotten to mention the issue of carbon markets. That is actually the major component that is African leaders are really pushing for. But when you look at it, you realize that it will only push for more taxes. The companies being taxed, at the moment you're talking about 37 companies plus, closed down. Unemployment is going high because somebody wants to introduce carbon tax or carbon fund or something. So he's really trying, but I think he's not doing right. He's really selling us out probably for the benefit of a few individuals.
Okay.
And then recently, which is very even annoying to me, especially during this season, there is a bill in Parliament to introduce chicken tax.
Okay.
That if you have to rear even one chicken, you must have a license. And that is very sad for me.
Yeah.
Because now I have to sell off all my chickens because I'm not going for the license.
Okay, I cannot confirm that.
No, it is true. There's a bill that has been introduced. But aside that, you're asking a very important question, Dennis, tonight. What is our basis of measuring that President Ruto is taking Kenya to the global map? Is it economy? Then there's no conversation to discuss. Is it climate? We have floods, right? We are going to face a drought in come January. There's no simple plan for this government in matters of economy, in matters of climate. So when you're trying to measuring the standard that is taking us as a country, then it's taking us to the tunnel.
Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining me tonight. I've been speaking to Isaac KWEYU, who is a political commentator, and Nick MWADIME Mwangi, who is the National Executive Director, Mount Kenya Colleges and Universities Students Association. Just quickly looking at the feedback here, Grace Maina says, I'm watching from Machakos University. Kalebe says, I'm watching, and is asking 2013 or 2023. The case of the control of budget will be mentioned again on the 13th December 2023. I'm sorry for that. Anodida was asking how are those applauses helping Kenyans at the grassroots level, and Agaton Forex says Comrade Isaka is okay. Thank you so much. Let's take a short break. We'll be right back.